Oh God, my stomach. There is nothing I will not see on the street of internet. Asian people are now claiming that they are not people of color, that they are whites. Asians now want to identify with whiteness. In fact, they choose whiteness. Even despite the fact that some of these Asians are even educating their fellow Asians that, hello, we are not white. A lot of them are coming out to be like, we are white. In fact, some of them will tell you, I eat Asian food, I do this in Asian, I do that in Asian. As it goes into that point, you hate to be identified as people of color, like with passion. And the only thing now is to identify as, anyways, who am I? Anybody can be white. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Sonia. Subscribe, like, comment, and share, and credit blogs to original creators of every single clips and stitches we have in our today's episode. With that being said, let's go watch. I'll be back with commentaries.
Hold on, I have to shut the door and tell you guys this. I was talking to this guy, and when I say talking, just a friend, and he's Asian and white. And he tells me, like, I was like, hey, are you worried about, like, you know, Trump and the things that he's been saying and people going to different countries, not being able to come back into the U.S.? He dead ass looks me in the face and he says, like, he's not really worried because most people think he's white. I paused. The way I paused and looked at him made me realize that mixed black people are not the only ones who have like that blindness to think that they don't look black. Because when he said it to me, I was like, do I correct him? He really thinks he does not look Asian. And I was like looking at him dumbfounded because I was like, no, but you look Asian. So now I've realized that biracial black people are not the only ones who have that blindness. And I did not correct him because at this time I was like, I don't think he needs that lesson from me. I don't think he needs it from me.
This talking point of Asians being white is coming from, but it's really harmful. Yellow Peril, the Chinese Exclusion Act, Japanese internment, the nukes dropped on Japan civilians, 635,000 tons of bombs dropped on Korea during the Korean War. They did not see us as white. They barely saw us as human. First of all, East Asians are not a monolith. There are so many Koreans that are several shades darker than the typical like beauty standard pale Korean you may see. But they are not represented as much because of colorism. Second of all, East Asians and other Asians in America were not seen as white, and we were not treated as white. And to imply otherwise is incredibly ignorant and erases the history of violence and destruction of our communities in America. For an example, the LA Chinatown Massacre. The mob gathered after hearing that a policeman and a rancher had been killed as a result of a conflict between rival tongs. As news of their deaths spread across the city, fueling rumors that the Chinese community were killing whites wholesale, more men gathered around the boundaries of Negro Alley. And this is far from the only example of violence against Asians, especially in America. In Asia, European and American powers came into our nations, split our nations in half, split families, committed genocides. They did not see us as white. They barely saw us as human.
Of an Asian creator responding to a comment she got from another Asian person, and that person was saying how Asians are not POC. They're not people of color. They're just minorities. That was the first time I ever saw an Asian person or anyone ever say that Asians are not people of color. I found it so weird. I'm like, what? So I go into the comments, and the comments tell me everything. There are some people, including Asians, who don't consider themselves people of color because they're not like black or brown. They have like very light or pale skin. And it's really crazy to me that people like in 2026 think that people of color literally means you have like obvious pigmented melanated skin, therefore you are a person of color. But when you don't have melanated or pigmented skin, then you're white. No. And I'm sorry for those of you who actually wish that were true because you want to be white and you have an issue with what you look like and where you come from. People of color is not like skin tone. It's just like the obvious features, the very distinct features you have that tell the world you are not white. You could be pale as fuck. There are albino black people and you can still tell they are black. Asians have very distinct features that tell you they're Asian. It doesn't matter how pale they are. White passing exists. Being ambiguous exists. For a lot of people, maybe even most, you can tell. You can tell when you're either not white or you're not just white, like you're mixed with something. So yeah, I'm sorry to any of you who feel like a stab in the heart hearing that. I know how badly some of you want to be white. You're not, and we can tell.
Asian people want to be white people so bad. At least that's what I used to think. Because the way some Asians avoid the sun like the plague, and how whitening agents are in everything. What in the whiteness is going on? Like so many people on this internet, our assumption is they want to be so close to white that they want to look it. But after living here, I've learned differently. Skin being white in most cases has nothing to do with white people. It has everything to do with signaling wealth, education, and beauty. Dark skin signals field work, and wealth has shaped the beauty standards in Asia. Really, in most of the world. Only color Asians want to be is the color of currency. The issue in Asia is colorism, not their aspiration to be white. We need to recognize that beauty comes in all shades, all shapes, all colors. But baby, please don't think these Asians like white people, because I done been in a room with them, and the way they be throwing shade.
So I knew that when I started talking about race on this platform that people would come for me, but this is the most bizarre comment I've ever received. Yes, I am Asian, and yes, I am a person of color. To call Asians the most privileged race over white people is not only bizarre, but it's also really damaging. It just gives credence to the negative stereotypes toward Asian people that at first blush can be considered positive, like Asians are good at math, Asians are hardworking, Asians are subservient, but that are actually really damaging. Not to mention the fact that Asians are the most socioeconomically diverse swath of people in the US. So high earners, low earners, privileged, non-privileged. At the end of the day, Asians are people of color and should be treated as such. It's also not a competition for who is the most disadvantaged. So I don't really know.
I can't with this comment. Genuine question. Do you actually think I'm white? This person told me I need to educate myself before I throw around terms like person of color because that term doesn't apply to me. I am extremely Korean, and it's API Heritage Month. Don't leave comments like this.
On the no side, some people said no, Asians are not considered POC, and it's often because, our skin is light.
No, the reason America wants to consider Asian people white is because it's a lot easier to exclude them from things academically if we make them white on paper. Asian Americans are the most successful people in America, so why should they benefit from special grants, minority scholarships, and affirmative action, right? America being America, they don't want to look racist excluding Asian Americans from things who are the smallest percentage of people in America next to Native Americans. Now, of course, Asians aren't white. A lot of them are even darker than me. I think if we're going to make dumb laws and benefits for POCs and then condemn Asian Americans for the hard work and dedication they put into their academics and prove statistically that minorities and POCs do not need a helping hand, which helps prove institutional racism in 2022, might just be baloney. Other POCs don't like that. They want institutional racism to thrive. They want it to be alive and succeed because you know why? That benefits them. Anyway, I don't want to go on a tangent. Let me know your guys' opinion in the comments.
Message is for my fellow Asians, so if you're not Asian, you can keep scrolling. I think right now is a very important time for us to acknowledge the fact that we have more in common with our friends of color than we do with white people. I know it can be very easy for us to feel protected by the majority class because of our status as the model minority, but whether people want to acknowledge it or not, we are people of color. I know it can be hard to admit, it can be hard to accept, especially considering that racism against Asian people is hardly ever taken seriously. But right now is a very serious, dangerous time for us and for our friends of color. And you cannot erase the fact that you are a person of color based on your proximity to whiteness. And I say that as a Chinese adoptee who was adopted by a white family. My husband is white, I live in a very white area of the country. Trust me, I understand. It can be very easy to slip into the mindset of I'm just like them, I'm gonna be fine, I don't have to do anything. And I know there is a lot of division across the Asian community right now, but right now we need to stand together as people, we need to stand up for each other, and we need to stand up for our friends of color. There is no excuse anymore, and we have to remove our proximity.
Add more to my discussion about light-skinned Asians thinking that they're next in line to be white. And I want to try to build empathy for them because unfortunately that is my nature. If you've seen my content, that is what I do. I build empathy towards the people that have hurt me. I wish I could stop, but I can't. Why are Asians like this? Specifically, why are Chinese, Japanese, Koreans like this? And when I use those words, I don't mean their current countries. I mean like their years of generational influence. For instance, I am Taiwanese, and so in a current context, I really don't like being called Chinese, but I have to admit that culturally, I am from Chinese descent. The same way that like American white people hate being called Anglos, or we don't call, we should call them, like, you're English. But the English is what brings it in. See, I've been learning about ancient Chinese history because we're never taught it in American schools. And if you think about ancient Chinese history, they had these massive, massive wars. The biggest, of course, usually people's gateway is the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, this epic. It was like Game of Thrones written by Homer. But these massive empires and kingdoms, they all kind of looked the same color. And it's something that we in America often forget, that there were empires in which colorism wasn't the primary distinction. So if it wasn't color, what was it? One of the really big ones, it was language. If you think about the fact that Korea still exists today, a huge, huge part of that was the insistence, the systemization, the education of the Korean language. If you look at a lot of Asian colonization, a lot of it is about wiping out language. So if your culture is descendant from Chinese, and I don't know as much about Japanese, but I think Japanese is similar, then a lot of what was the hierarchy was language. And you have to remember, before mass communication, that was an easy thing to gatekeep. The servants never overheard, or they could only overhear their masters talking in their dialect. And then it was really easy to figure out whether somebody was rich or not, because whether they could speak and sound like you. There's an example of this in the Old Testament where they're trying to figure out if this person is of the Israelite kingdom. And so they ask them to say this word, and they can't say the word. One thing Americans need to wake up to a lot is monolinguistic cultures, nations, empires, is a rare thing. For most of human history, language was the primary gatekeeper. And so part of why I think light-skinned Asians think that we can get in, and why to a degree we have been let in the whole model minority thing, is the belief that if we can talk the talk, they'll let us in. And they're not entirely wrong. Black people have understood this since they were enslaved and brought here. Boots Riley's Sorry to Bother You, right, goes into that. Like having a white voice, being able to talk like the white people. And for us as Asians, I think there is a cultural valuation difference. I don't think that a lot of first generation immigrants fully realize, and again, I'm talking about the light-skinned ones, right? Fully realize how much greater colorism is in America than the language segregation. And I'll share with you, like, I have an odd experience with this because I am routinely, on this app even, complimented on my voice. And I want to tell you that as a child, I was very cognizant of the fact that this was the way that I would be accepted. This was the way that I could fit in. And this was the way that I could achieve status and power. Now, could I have articulated all of that at the time? No. But I knew that when I read well, when I talked well, when I spoke well, that I would get more attention and that I could get in. But then on the flip side, I can only speak English. And I was weekly in an environment where everybody looked like me, yet I could not talk to them. I want to tell you that I think the talking is still more important. So, for example, I'm thinking now about Trump's ramblings at his rallies that to many people in my spheres looks like incoherent nonsense. But then I remember being in evangelicalism and going to revival nights where a preacher would preach sometimes for an hour, 2 hours, and it was rambling, incoherent nonsense. That's kind of the language. I don't really know enough about the caste system in India to speak articulately on it, so forgive me if I'm incorrect, but I think with Indian culture as well, that's one of the things, is that their insistence on learning the language. And even right now, there's tension because I think within the Asian community, there is division between the light-skinned Asians, which are Chinese, Japanese, Korean, and the dark-skinned Asians, which are like the Indian. And this is crazy that these are all countries that in Asia don't get along. Like in my high school, Indian kids and Pakistani kids got along because we had to. But here's the thing, right? Because I also have a lot of code switching that I did in middle school and high school around other people of color, Black and Hispanic. I have a lot of Asian friends who can code switch, right? And can do the esse, right? Or yo, what's up, right? And especially in male culture, that is really important. But here's the thing, and I'm noticing it on the comments too from my last one. There is a lot of differences in Asians in different parts of the country. One of the things that I have this weird thing is growing up in Houston, being Asian and my friends who were Black, we were on the same side. Like in school, we're on the same side, right? Like, but then when I moved to Los Angeles, and it was bizarre to me that Black people and Asians were not friends. And I learned about, the uprisings and I was like, oh yeah, I get it. But here's the thing, then if we're the swing, if Asians are that swing 1% to 2% now, then y'all gotta learn to speak our language. Take your shoes off when you come in our house. Bring a box of fruit. Learn how to properly bow. Because if neither of you are really listening to us, then, which one would you vote for? Are you gonna have fled your countries of safety? Are you gonna be a perpetual foreigner and then side with the oppressed? Like no, unless you can give a religious moral reason to do that. If you're saying neither one of you is going to have us, then wouldn't we rather be on the side of those in power? Wouldn't we rather be their lapdogs than to be, right? the lapdogs of the side that's getting oppressed. But here's the hope, and I've said this before. I think the Asian American community also has some of the answers that we need, because like the Pakistani and Indian kids, right? Like for me, having friends who were Chinese, Asian Americans have learned how to ally with each other despite long historical grudges, rightly so. Despite linguistic and religious differences, we have learned to ally together, kind of. And isn't that what we need more of? That's my pitch. If you've stuck around, I love answering questions. I want to be talking about this right now. I have a lot of energy for it. So ask me more questions. Let's have this conversation. Let's find hope in the midst of this. And also, if you do need to rant and you need to let out that energy, totally cool too. But just please be kind to me. I am also a human being. I'm just gonna come right out and say out loud what I think the real reason is why Asian American congregations are comfortable voting MAGA and being part of the MAGA cult. It's because they think they're next in line to be white. Like, that's it. That's 100%, right? Like, I think right now it's, like Irish, Italians, they got to be white. And right now, light-skinned Latinos get to be white. And light-skinned Asians are next. I think that's what they genuinely believe. I don't think it is true. I think that our features are different enough that that the majority power, right, that to get 51%, and you can see the other video I posted about that, they're not going to let us in. Not if they can find somebody else. And I think they will be able to find somebody else. Or they'll let us in just enough. They'll keep promising to let us in. But they'll only let us in through breeding. I'm gonna say it out loud, right? Like if the kid is half white, half Asian, then that's okay. Then you'll be let in, and that's the hope. I think that's honestly, like, if they don't want to say it, or this first generation, second generation immigrants don't want to say it, but that is the real reason. They think they're next in line.
So according to Twitter, apparently Asians are not people of color. So this person made that tweet in response to Popbase's tweet about Michelle Yeoh being the second woman of color to ever win Best Actress. And I'm literally at a loss of words. Also, some of the things they're saying just literally makes no sense. Like, this person made this comment and they responded with, still not gonna give Chinese people color. So are they implying that Michelle is Chinese? Because she's actually Malaysian. So they're just sounding like stupidly ignorant in their own comment section. And here they are again with like another response. And then this person said that Asians is more than just Chinese. A lot of Asian people have darker complexions, including South Asians. And they're like, yeah, those are the actual colored ones. Like, oh, I'm sorry. I am a lighter skinned East Asian person because I'm Chinese. Sorry, let me go look for my white privilege real quick. Because last time I checked, I didn't have any. But I just think this is such an L take in general. Look, we can all agree that society places a big emphasis on light skin in most countries, and in the US as well. And if you do have lighter skin, you do have more benefits. And that is super effed up. Like, skin tones of every color is beautiful, and the privileges you get shouldn't be affiliated with literally how you physically look. But if you're a person of color, whether you have a light skin or dark skin, you still experience prejudices that people who are white do not experience. Which is why we are all people of color. It literally is, as long as you're not white, you're a person of color. And I kind of feel like this feeds back into the cultural feud between like the Asian community and the Black community. I don't know too much about it, but from what I've seen, it always seems like they're kind of like butting heads. But at the end of the day, we are all both still people of color. And instead of just like going at each other's necks all the time, we're missing the bigger problem overall, which is this like Eurocentric, white favored society that we should be fighting against. Not each other, because like, why are we oppressing each other even more?
The
this topic before, and I'm going to talk about it again. I sometimes forget the privilege of kind of being surrounded by like-minded people that I forget. Like, I recently had this conversation with my family, and it kind of shot me back a little bit of like the idea that Asians are the model minority, but like Asians are the model minority until it's no longer convenient for people who are trying to uphold that myth. Like, that myth was originally weaponized during the civil rights movement to create a division between Asian people and other minority groups. And it's not a celebration of our accomplishments. It's actually more of a convenient tool to mask ongoing discrimination and inequality that's happening between different minority groups. I wanted to bring that up because I recently had a talk about my family about just like, honestly, like Vietnamese Republicans and a lot of Trump supporters. It's so frustrating to see that it's now becoming a stereotype that there's a lot of Vietnamese Republicans and a lot of Vietnamese Trump supporters in the community. I know so many other young Vietnamese Americans and that have kind of made it a joke about their parents being Trump supporters because it's kind of a relating quality between a lot of Vietnamese Americans and a lot of Vietnamese youth where their parents are Trump supporters, and that's something that everyone can kind of relate on, and that's a little bit disappointing. Like, I know that there's a massive literacy problem among Vietnamese war refugees, and many of the resources available in Vietnamese are very hate-centered, and it kind of breaks my heart to see my own family be influenced by people in their lives. Like, I've seen that there are people who just kind of tell my family something, and then my family will take that at face value because it's coming from someone that they trust, even though they shouldn't just be trusting this person just because they're telling them that. Like, and then I feel like when someone tells them a very hate-fueled statement, they'll take it to heart, and then it takes like 10 times more convincing to kind of get them out of that. And it's just been like a heartbreaking conversation to have with a lot of my family, and I feel like sometimes so alone on it. Like, I have always been kind of an outspoken person, especially within my own family. Like, a lot of my family is very reserved, and it is very popular in the Vietnamese culture to kind of avoid a lot of that conflict. I've never been like that. I'm always been like if I have an issue, I'm gonna say something outright. And I just feel like sometimes so alone on it. Like, a lot of my family will kind of look down on other immigrants when they are boat people. Like, I'm first gen, so they are literally the boat people. And they kind of don't really understand how many refugees and how many community members have received orders of deportation or just kind of like are facing a lot of these issues that they think don't apply to them. And it's just kind of, I don't know. I guess I don't know if I'm looking for solace. I don't know if I'm looking for community, but I just get really heartbroken when I see people that I love, people that I respect, people in my own family that I thought were better, that I held to a high regard, kind of get influenced in this way and refuse to listen to reason. I don't know. It's just been breaking my heart, and I wonder if a lot of other Vietnamese Americans are facing this. I specifically say Vietnamese and Vietnamese Americans and refugees because that's my experience. I understand that a lot of other communities probably face the same issue, but I don't want to speak on anyone else's experience. I have talked to my friend who's like Burmese, and I have other friends who are Cambodian who have like shared same sentiments, but I don't want to speak on their experience.
Right, so somebody commented that there are no white people, no black people, no people of color. We are all mixed, just shades of brown. Yeah, listen up. It's true that race is a social construct and it's not real, but the consequences and ways in which it has been weaponized for centuries is what's very real. And here's the thing. This whole colorblind, we're all one race line, it is mighty convenient for the folks that did the oppressing. Mighty convenient for people who are white. Also for people who are white presenting or white passing who want to align with white privilege, because y'all get to opt out and skip the messy part. And you get to pretend that if we stop talking about race, that somehow racism will magically disappear. And it doesn't. That's not the solution. Let's use a Monopoly analogy, shall we? Let's pretend we've been playing this way for centuries, because we have. White players get $200 every time they pass go, and they get a few bonus $200 just for even showing up.
And then they get all the first dibs on property. And certain deeds of properties literally say that people of color can't own them or occupy them. They also get all the get out of jail free cards, all of them. While Black, Indigenous, people of color just thrown in jail on purpose, no free cards in sight. They also lobbied and worked with people behind the scenes and rigged the game to have laws, banks, and policies helping them build wealth even further, while other players had wealth taken, property destroyed, and opportunities blocked. And now, after centuries of this, we're all like, why are we playing like this? This is unfair. And the rule makers are like, oh, okay, everybody calm down. We'll all play by the same rules. Here's the problem with that. White folks have hotels on Boardwalk and Park Place and stacks of cash and generational advantages, and everyone else starting with nothing. And instead of acknowledging that and acknowledging that the game has been rigged and making it right, people are like, listen, we are all the same now. That's the past. Let's not dwell on the past. You're making us all uncomfortable. Just work harder. This is divisive. That's what We're All Shades of Brown does. It just skips right over the repair and the restorative justice and the ongoing effects of systemic racism. And it doesn't even admit to it. And another thing, we are not all identifying as mixed race, point blank period. Some of us are mixed race like me. A lot of people are not. And erasing those identities doesn't bring unity. It just serves the people who benefit from the erasure. So no, we can't just stop seeing race because the system still sees it and has always seen it. It was built on it. And until we fix the rigged system and rigged game, pretending that everyone is on equal footing is just a prettier, nicer way of saying, I'm fine with how things are. Yet like tragic, oh, my heart breaks for you. I'm fine though. Until next time, y'all.
Seen Asians as yellow though. They tan or super pale white like my boyfriend. He's whiter than me actually, super pale. Yeah, it's totally unfair that us East Asians got stuck with yellow just because the other colors were already taken, as in white, black and brown. Nobody is yellow unless they have jaundice, right? But South Asians are brown, Southeast Asians are sort of light brown, and most East Asians are whiter than Caucasians, who are sort of pinky peach.
I've lived in the Pacific Northwest for a decade, so I have not seen the sun. But when I do see the sun, this is what I look like. But that's besides the point, because being a person of color isn't actually about how dark or light your skin is. There's no criteria of how dark it has to be in order to be considered a person of color. It's just about your race. POC is an umbrella term that encompasses anyone who isn't white or of European descent. Have a good night.
Welcome back, guys. In United States, Asian Americans refer to people in America whose ancestors come from Eastern Asian, Southeast Asian, or South Asian. For example, China, Indian, Koreans, Vietnam, the Philippines, etc. White in the US, racial categorized traditionally refers to people of European ancestries. So by definition in US racial classification, Asian American equals to Asian ancestries and white is equals to European ancestries. They are categorized differently. Asian Americans were legally and socially treated as non-white for the history of US. Example, the Chinese Exclusion Act banned Chinese immigrants and denied them citizenship. The Supreme Court case Ozawa v. United States ruled the Japanese immigrants were not considered white and therefore could not become citizens. Now, during the World War II, Japanese Americans were forcibly incarcerated under police tied to Japanese American internments. If Asian American had been considered white, the law wouldn't have applied to them in the same way. I hope we're getting that clear. Now let's talk about the social reality. Race is not just about biology. It is about how society classify and treats people. Asian Americans are often racially identified as Asian in their daily life. Experience form of racism that white Americans typically do not experience. As statistically categorized, separatedly from white Americans in government data, schools, and also research. Why some people just get confused? There are a few reasons to this while it comes up. Some Asian Americans have light skin. Some Asian Americans have high average income or educational level, which lead to the modern minority stereotype. In some conversation about privilege, people debate whether Asian Americans are adjacent to whiteness socially. But socially and legally, Asian American is totally different and categorized differently from the United States, which is the Europeans, right? Race category varies by country in places like Brazil or North Africa. Racial systems are structured differently in the US. However, Asians and whites are officially separate racial group. This is why I will still keep saying it. Proximity to whiteness can definitely not make you white. The fact that you think that your skin is very light, the fact that you think that your skin is popping enough, the fact that you think that you are eating white people's food, you act like white people. In fact, whenever you go to places, they're not even able to identify you as an Asian American person. Sorry, it doesn't change that. You are still Asian. You are still Asian. There is nothing you can do. The privileges that these white people can get, you cannot get it. And that is why I so much love Black Americans, because they understand where they are coming from and they embrace where they are coming from and they move with where they are coming from. Why is it that some of this race wants to just identify separately? Just like the video I did where you literally see a black woman looking into my eyes and saying to the camera that she is literally not black, she is white. Why do you think that identifying yourself with white people actually give you all of that privilege, actually make you special, actually make you have one or two things? It is not. Whenever there is an issue and they said Asians come out, you are going to be among them no matter how hard you try. Embrace your race, embrace who you are. Try to understand who you are and grow up with what you are. It's crazy that a lot of Asians are now thinking that they are white. Proximity to whiteness is not white. It's not. Oh my God. Let me know what you think about this video. Credit belongs to original creators of every single clips and stitches we have in today's episode. And I want to say a very big thank you to every single one of you liking, commenting, sharing my videos, dropping commentaries, and also dropping super thanks, joining my membership. I do not take you guys for granted. You guys are absolutely the best. And thank you so much for staying stick and with me to the end of this video. With that being said, with no further ado, I like I always say in my videos, I'm going to be simple and I'll see you guys in my next one. Please let me know what you think. Bye for now. I love you guys. Mwah.